Hey, hi, how you going? It's your main Valstride, and today I'm updating my Palworld tier list to include all of the new pals introduced with Tides of Terraria. Let's check it out. So here we have the pre-existing tier list with all of the old pals already distributed, and if you want to see my logic for how the tier list came to be the way it is, I'll leave a link in the description down below to the original video, but for today, I'm just going to be going through the 27 new pals that you can see down the bottom here and adding them up into the tier list above. Now overall, I've got 7 categories and I will be ranking each of the pals, giving consideration to their combat potential, their general utility, and their work suitability. So if they really excel in any of those, then they could be moved all the way up the list. It's not just for the top combat pals all the way up in best of the best, but 7 categories overall. I've got best of the best, that is your usual S tier. And then below that, I've got solid for those pals that are still really, really good, but they're just not quite all the way up at the top. And then I've got special niche for all of the pals who play a very special role or a very particular role, but it's a little too niche or a little too narrow to earn them a spot higher up on the list. And then I've got a category just for me, which is I just think they're neat. And this is all of my favorite pals who are just near and dear to my heart and I love and adore them. And I just don't want to put them any lower. And then we've got mostly useless, completely useless, and a special place in hell. Now, last time we did this list, a lot of you were up in arms about some of the pals all the way down the bottom of the list in a special place in hell, saying that their abilities were actually better than I'm giving them credit for and all of that. And I just want to clear the air on that. The bottom place, a special place in hell, has nothing to do with the quality of the pal, right? It's more like the I just think they're neat category, but the opposite. It's all the pals who I just hate their face and they annoy me and I just don't want them to exist. So that's what that one's about. But without any further ado, let's move on to the actual list. And remember, if you do enjoy this content, like, comment, and subscribe. It all really helps support the channel a lot. So first cab off the rank, we've got Azurobist, who is the new variant of the original Azurobe, which is just a water pal, but Azurobist is an ice dragon pal, which is a really interesting typing, but unfortunately, I don't really think it's going to make it very high. Now, this one does have the ability that Frostallion has in that it can convert the player's damage to ice damage, which is really cool, and it does give the player a damage buff for doing that. But the fact that it just does the same thing as Frostallion, but is pretty much strictly worse because it doesn't have the additional 20% that Frostallion gives you, and it's not really a flying mount either, means I don't think I can rate it very highly. I don't think its stats are good enough to get it up into solid as a combat pal. It's about 7th overall in terms of firepower, as far as just the ice pals go, let alone all of the other pals. So I think I have to unfortunately put this one all the way down into mostly useless. Next up, we've got Braloha, and this dude is looking happy for a reason because he easily earns his spot all the way up into best of the best without a doubt. This dude has one of the best new abilities in the game and is going to reduce the time it takes to produce eggs for all of the breeding farms in your base. So you only need 1 Braloha in base, you condense him all the way up to 5 stars, and he's gonna halve the time it takes to produce an egg. Now it does stack with other abilities like Philanthropist, but it doesn't stack with itself. So you don't need or can't have more than 1 Braloha giving this effect at any given time. But nonetheless, given how much the end game is about breeding and how important that whole process is, this dude easily earns a spot all the way up at the top. This ability is fantastic. Moving along now, we have another new variant in Gelroy Lux, and unfortunately this one is also going to be rated pretty low. This has the glider ability similar to Galeclaw in that it's going to give you a boost in speed while gliding, but it's just not as much of a boost in Galeclaw, so there's really no reason to use this instead of Galeclaw. So I'm just going to be putting this one down in mostly useless. I don't really think I'll be opting for this one over Galeclaw anytime soon. Next up, we've got the Dummered Gilded variant, and we can put this one straight up into special niche with the old Dummered because they basically do the same thing. They're both going to give you a 20% boost to ground pals. And then after that, we've got Crojiro Noct, who I am comfortable putting all the way up into special niche. Now, you might be looking at this wondering, hey, how come you've got the new Crojiro all the way up here, but the old one is down in a special place in hell? And there's 2 main reasons for that. The first is that the new one has the booster pal ability and it's going to give a 20% boost to dark pals, just like Hukrati's does. But more importantly, the old one is just really fucking annoying because every time I'm minding my own business, walking around a low level area, this guy decides it's a good idea to put me in a 3-second wall splash animation and just ruin my day. So this one's down here, the old one's up there, and we're going to move on with that. Next up, we've got the new Finsider Ignis, which is the variant of the new Finsider. And this guy actually also gets to go up in a special niche because he's a fire booster power. So we are getting a lot of new booster powers, which is kind of cool. We got options there, but it's also, it's the same ability over and over again. So it's a little bit boring in that regard. But the new Finsider unfortunately doesn't get to go as high. He's going to be all the way down in completely useless because all he really does is increase your carry weight. So look, maybe I'll give him a spot in mostly useless. I just don't really rate this ability very highly. He's pretty good in the early game potentially, but it doesn't really increase your carry weight enough to earn a slot in your power party. And personally, I just turn that world setting off. I think that's just a way better way to go about it. So I'm going to put him in mostly useless for that reason. And next up, we have one that I think could be going really underrated, though I haven't had the opportunity to fully test this out yet. I'm talking about Frost Plume, who is a new ice power, and this has the ability to increase the player's reload speed by up to 50%. Now, the really cool thing about this is some of the best damage builds in the game are player damage builds, and some of the best weapons have really long reload times. But if you can really shake up the, distribution between reload time, or we'll call it downtime and uptime of the weapon, that might drastically increase the potential damage output. So I'm interested to see how this performs when you're using things like the plasma cannon, the Gatling gun, or the multi-guided missile launcher that all have really high reload times. Even the advanced bow, I wonder if this actually makes you draw your arrows a lot faster. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one turns out. I do need to do more testing with it before I can actually rank it all the way up at the top. But I'm going to put this one in solid for now, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one ends up being a new meta pal all the way in best of the best. Next up, we've got the new Fuak variant in Fuak Ignis, and this one does unfortunately have to go down into completely useless. He has a really cool typing, so he's a fire water power, which is really nice because I do like whenever we get these good defensive typings where one of the elements protects from the weakness of the other. So in this case, you've got water, which is resistant against water that would otherwise be super effective against fire, but it's being neutralized. But the stats on this one just aren't good enough. He does have some good early game potential for his work suitabilities, but that's about it. And it's not really enough for me to rank him any higher. However, moving on, I am going to put the new Gangler Ignis all the way up into solid for some of the same logic, because he is another fire water power, but this time the stats are actually quite strong. So he has the second highest attack stat amongst all of the water powers, and his other stats are decent. I'm interested to see what this one can do in combat. I'm not rating him high enough to put him up into best of the best. I certainly don't think he's that good, but I'm going to put him up here in solid, and I'm confident with that, especially because of that defensive typing. The other Gangler, however, doesn't have quite as good stats, and he's not a fire water power, so I'm not as interested in him because of the typing. And therefore, unfortunately, I am going to put this one all the way down into completely useless. I just think he's outclassed by pretty much every other option above him. Moving along, we have Gloopy next, and this adorable power was one of the earliest powers spoiled when we got our first look at the Tides of Terraria update. Now, this one does have a nice niche ability that is going to help make fishing a lot easier, but I'm yet to be convinced that fishing is that important of a mechanic, so I don't think I can put her up here into special niche. I'm happy to be wrong on that, and maybe my mind will be changed down the track, but for now, I am going to put her into mostly useless, and I actually have to move Gangler up. I just thought about this. Gangler has to come up a little bit as well because he does help with fishing as well. But I'm going to put both of these there, and maybe one day we'll move those a little higher if fishing turns out to be a little more critical. And now we get to my favorite new pal, Herbble, and this is a grass neutral pal who I would love to be able to just put straight into I just think they're neat, except for the fact that this little guy gets to go even higher. I'm going to put this guy all the way up into solid because he has a fantastic ability that is going to resurrect the player when you die. Now, he only has to be in party, and when you go down, he's going to jump out of the power sphere and bring you back to life. The only reason I can't put him all the way up into best of the best is because it's a little bit win more, right? So you should be able to complete all of the endgame content without dying at all, and you really are just better off dedicating a party slot to any other power that is going to help you do that better without dying. So you don't really need Herbble, though he does make some of the content a little bit easier if you are struggling with it in the first place to get it clear without dying. However, I do need to give a quick PSA on this guy because he's currently bugged. So I was doing some testing with the tower bosses, and at first I got really excited because the normal thing happens. You die, and he jumps out and he resurrects you. And then I noticed the boss completely stopped attacking me, and I got really pumped. I was like, oh, this is going to be a free way to get clears. Everyone needs to know about this. You can just shoot the boss down. You can take all the time in the world you want. He doesn't fight back. But the problem is, when you do eventually get the boss down, it doesn't count as a clear for some reason. It just completely bugs out. You don't get any of the loot, and I'm pretty sure you won't get the achievement either, though I'm not quite sure on that one because I've already got those achievements, so I don't know if it gives you that or not. But nonetheless, it's currently bugged, though it will allow you to just shoot down the boss for free. It doesn't actually count as killing the boss. But either way, he's a really solid pal, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do once they fix the mechanic. Moving along, we've got Iceland next, and this one has a really cool design, and I get to put this one straight up in a special niche because it's a damage conversion pal. So it's going to change the player's damage to the ice element, though this is one of the ones that has to be out in combat with you, so it's like while fighting together rather than mounted. But thinking about this, it made me realize I actually need to move Azurobist up. So I underrated this one before. All of my damage conversion pals have at least been in special niche. So I'm going to put Azurobist up here, but like I did say earlier, this one's not as good as Frost Stallion, who is the best of the best for that. And now we have Gelroy and Gillette, who I'm really excited to talk about because these guys get to go straight up into best of the best. These guys are instantly the new best watering pals because of their ability, which strictly gives them a work speed increase to watering while in base. Now they don't have the natural level 4 work suitability in watering, and when I initially did the tier list, I did state that I wasn't going to be considering pals based on their potential if you give them the work suitability books because they were really hard to come by and I didn't think it was viable. But a few things have changed. I mean, first of all, I did make some exceptions last time because we put Lulu and Prunelia up here, despite them not having the top level work suitabilities. It was simply their passives that got them all the way up into the top. But in addition to that, and probably more importantly, is the fact that the work suitability books are much easier to farm now. You can actually get them from the Fabric supply drops at a 100% rate. And you can easily just go and change your settings so that they drop every 60 seconds and you're easily going to be able to get enough of those books. So when you consider the passive of these, they are easily going to be the best watering pal in the game, and that easily gets them a spot up in the best of the best. And in fact, while I'm here, because of this change, I do actually need to bump down these other watering pals. So I think actually Yormantide's going to get to stay up there as a combat pal. No, actually, Yormantide Ignis doesn't get to stay up there as a combat pal. Yormantide Ignis does, but the normal Yormantide doesn't. So these two moving up has actually kicked these old two watering pals down into just solid. So that's how good they are. Really looking forward to adding these into my base. Next, we have the new Killamari variant, Killamari Primo, and this one is a decent glider pal, but I don't think it's good enough to be too much higher on the list. I'm just going to put it right here next to the other Killamari. And then we've got Munchel after that, who has a weird ability that's going to basically be a fridge for your party, so your food isn't going to spoil as fast while it's in your bag. That's really just not that important, so I'm going to put this guy into mostly useless. Maybe early game if you want to, if you're struggling to get enough food to maintain your daily activity, but later game you just have an abundance and this isn't going to matter at all. Now we are moving on to Neptilius, and this dude is a king. Arguably this guy is the best new pal in the game. Well, sorry, the best new pal added to the game. He's not better than some of the pre-existing pals, but his combat stats are fantastic. He has the 4th highest overall attack stat out of any pal. He's easily the strongest water pal added to the game, so if you're looking for type coverage or anything like that, he's going to be fantastic in that regard. He has a really good exclusive move, and he's an incredibly fast water mount. I actually just did a video comparing the movement speed of Neptilius against Jetadragon and Xenolord over water, and Neptilius was way faster. So that is a little bit niche because you're not traveling across water that much. Like I wouldn't, swap this guy out for your Xenolord or your Jetadragon in your party. But nonetheless, it's an incredible ability, and his partner skill also comes with an attack, which is going to, while he's fighting with you, though it does read while fighting together. It reads while in party, but I've only noticed that it works while fighting together. So I think it's a little bit bugged, or at least like there might be a little bit of a typo going on there. And we'll have to see how good that is, whether or not it adds a lot of DPS to the player damage, but maybe it does. And I think overall, this guy easily has a spot up into best of the best. based on his combat suitability and just his general all-round strength. He's also the only new legendary power that we've had since the initial release of the game, because we didn't get any with Faybreak or Sakurajima. So that's really good to have another power that can get the legend skill. This guy is easily in best of the best, one of the best new additions to the game. Moving along, we have Palumba next, and this is one that you either love or hate, but I actually love this pal. I think the design is really cool, and I do get to put it all the way up into best of the best, right next to Dazumu. So arguably, Palumba is the new best ground mount pal, because like Dazumu, it has a buff that is going to increase its movement speed over a particular terrain. So for Dazumu, it's going to be while moving over sand, and for Palumba, it's going to be while moving over grass. But there are two things to be said here. First of all, grass is far more common than sand. And secondly, Palumba's buff is far higher. So Palumba gets plus 240% while moving over grass, whereas Dazumu only gets plus 100% for moving over sand. Now, the floor on Dazumu is higher because his base movement speed is higher than Palumba's is by a little bit. So the floor on Dazumu is higher, but the ceiling on Palumba is higher. So with that being said, I'm going to leave both of them up here in best of the best. I'm not going to kick Dazumu out, but I think I'm going to be trying out Palumba for a while. We're on the home stretch now, and we've got Pengala Lux next, which can go right next to the old Pengala. It's not that good, but it does have some early game work suitabilities that are pretty useful. Now the King Lux variant can go all the way up into special niche, because this is going to increase the drops from water powers when killed. So like some of the other powers up here, it is useful for increasing your drops. The new seal pal, I forget what this guy's called, Popolup or something. This guy unfortunately can go into completely useless. He does have that cute little ability that's going to help you slide down sloped surfaces faster, but I'm not really seeing why that is anything other than a little bit of fun. Not really that useful of an ability, unfortunately. Then we've got the two Turticles. Now the normal Turticle can just go into mostly useless, because this guy's just going to increase your carry weight. This guy does the same thing. He increases your carry weight, or sorry, reduces the weight of armor, therefore effectively increasing your carry weight. But this guy gets to go into special niche because he also has the booster pal effect, same as Dummid and the Dummid Guild. And then lastly, we've got the two Walaskas, and I do get to put these guys all the way up into best of the best. So I did just do a video that featured these guys, which was the fastest way to get the new Corallum ore, and that is a critical end game resource. So because these guys are the best way to get that resource, and it's an important resource, they get to go all the way up into the best of the best. This is also why we have a few other pals up here, like Nightmare, Smokey, and the, not Cactus, where is it? The Bee Guards, because honey is incredibly important. So any pal that is the best at getting important endgame resources does earn its spot up in best of the best, and Walaska is no exception. So here we have the final list, and I am really happy with all of the new pals introduced. You might have already noticed that we've got 8 out of 27 of the new pals all the way up in best of the best. So that is an incredibly impactful new DLC, shaking up the meta a lot. We've had to move some of the old best pals out, and overall I am really excited about what is to come. Some of the solid pals could be moving all the way up as well, and we didn't have to put any of the new pals down in a special place in hell. So overall, this update has just been an absolute win. But let me know what you think about this list in the comments down below, whether or not you think some of the pals need to be moved up or down, whatever the case may be. I'm bound to have gotten something wrong. There's so many new pals, and they've only been out for a few days, so we haven't had enough time to properly test everything. This is more of my initial thoughts of them, and I'm definitely willing to revise this list later down the track. But otherwise, thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.